Hello and welcome to the GamesCreed podcast, episode number 5. I'm your host Andresplays, and I am joined by a very special guest today, Lobo, aka BrokenLoboGaming. How you doing, man?
Hey, Andres. I'm very happy to be here. I'm honored to be here, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, man. Yeah, today's episode is gonna be a little different because the format of the show is usually you have one game. I have one game that I have reviewed, and the review's been published, and then a topic of conversation based off of that game and review. But in this case, I just really wanted to talk about Souls games, and I couldn't think of anybody better to talk about that with other than with you, man, because your knowledge, your strategies, the way you go about tackling these games is so interesting to me. We met on Twitter and for a while now, and I'm grateful that you came over to the podcast to talk about Souls games in general and Elden Ring and all of these games.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. First of all, I think that you're probably being a little too kind, but I do appreciate it. I do have what I would consider a very unorthodox approach to Souls games. I'm relatively new to them. I only started playing them with any
Yeah.
fervor and consistency in 2021.
Right.
And honestly, if I may, I'd like to shout out one of the
Yep.
first people that I started following on Twitter, Elbethium Gaming, um,
Hmm.
which I'm sure you're familiar with him as well. He was the
Yeah.
one who
Totally.
sort of inspired me, to be very honest with you, to see if I could challenge myself above and beyond sort of just beating a game.
Hmm.
And so I've started to approach any situation as a puzzle.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
That's great.
and so I don't really get frustrated. Like people like to say I have a lot of patience because with the way that I play, I end up dying a lot,
Yeah.
right? Because I really don't have a lot of health. But
Yeah.
um, I find that the high risk, high reward play style is very gratifying for me.
Right.
And I really honestly feel like I could beat these games, with the tools provided. And so that little extra challenge keeps me coming back.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, of course. I'm glad that you started there because I did want to start at the beginning. I myself have just started my Souls games journey with Bloodborne this year, actually, in January. So this
You've been doing amazing.
Thanks, man. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy because when I had tried to play Bloodborne over the years, I had heard, that it's a masterpiece, a great game. It came out in 2015, so I'd been hearing it, and I'd been trying it in 2017, and then in 2020, and then it never clicked. I felt like it was too difficult, but it was just myself. Not giving myself a chance to truly engage with the game, to truly engage with the mechanics, which is, I think that what you just mentioned about tackling it as a puzzle, not just beating it in the sense of progressing the story, but actually marveling at the boss, at each and every boss fight, because that's what FromSoftware, and all the subgenre of Souls likes are great at. Focusing on getting over
I agree.
to the boss, and then actually engaging with the boss, and not just fighting him in like what first try and kill him. Actually try to see what are they gonna do a second phase, how are they gonna surprise you. I think that's really engaging.
Yeah, I agree. So I find the that From Software's approach in particular to boss
Yeah.
design is quite intricate. Like, and because of the way that I play, like it's not even about trying to play perfectly. It's about essentially trying to survive. And so you start to kind of pick up on some of the things that they do to prevent that, obviously. And I find
Yeah.
that From Software is definitely top of class in that regard. And there are a lot of developers that I think in the
Yeah.
last few years have tried to replicate it to varying degrees of
Mm-hmm.
success. I think that probably Liza P stands out as the preeminent Souls like. But when we're talking
Yeah.
about Souls games in particular, we're talking about From Software, and I don't think one does it better. I definitely
True.
enjoy, to your point, engaging with each individual boss. They all present something a little bit different. I think that the baseline obviously is that your reflexes are going to be tested, but what I think a lot of people
Yeah.
don't recognize is that like there's a strategy beyond like I just need to kill this thing until I or hit it until I've killed it, right? Like there
Yeah.
are there are ways to go about doing that can be like efficient, or can really just take advantage of what the tools that the developers have given to you. So I'll use that as a
Yeah.
segue, right, to talk about the never ending conversation around the right way to play these games, right? Like, and I think that
Yeah.
we've had a lot of I think that there's been a paradigm shift, but I think that like years ago, I think that there was this really negative connotation with the Souls community because there were elitists there that felt that there was only one way to truly win or truly beat a boss, right?
Right.
And that's totally not what these games are about. It's about scratching and clawing your way to victory. It's about trying out different strategies to see what works, right? And um,
Yeah.
for me personally, that that keeps me coming back to those games. So it's not to say that they're infallible. I definitely see that there are, I don't want to call it areas of improvement, right? But because I'm a
Right.
layperson when it comes to game development, but I know as a
Mm-hmm.
player some of the things that I find to be cheap or find to be like sort of artificial difficulty,
Right.
and I find that they've equipped you with a bunch of tools to be able to get around that, right? And so, like, if you want to use
Yeah.
summons, if you want to, if you want to call your friends to help you out,
Help you
if you
out.
want to
Yeah.
use magic, yeah, man, please, you should be able to do that. Absolutely. I don't think there's any right way to go about it. And I think that again, to kind of just call out Albethian real quick, he's a super
Mm-hmm.
humble guy. Like he and I talk regularly, and it's just funny to see like we have similar approaches I think to life,
Yeah.
and maybe that's why we have similar approaches to gaming. But like I truly believe in humility, and I truly believe
Mm-hmm.
in camaraderie, right? And so I think
Right.
that like that was Miyazaki's true vision: is jolly cooperation, is people coming together to compare notes, So
Yeah.
I really, I really do enjoy these games for that specific
Mm-hmm.
reason. And what I've been loving lately is seeing all the different ways that people have been overcoming their challenges, their obstacles. You in particular,
Right.
man, like you've been ripping and running. Like you said, you started out with Bloodborne, and before I blinked, I think you'd completed both Neos, and your journey's been very honest, right? There are times where you
Yeah.
say, you know what, let me put this down. And but
Yeah.
what I love
Yeah. Yeah.
about it is that, like you said, you never really gave yourself the opportunity to engage with the mechanics. I think that playing Bloodborne has changed your mentality, and so
Mm-hmm.
now it's just a
Mm-hmm.
matter of, I know I'm going to win. It's just how am I going to do it? And it's beautiful to see you grow in such a short period of time. And I love to see other
Thank you, man.
players like I mean I'm relatively new as well, right? Like I
Yeah.
love to see us newish players like really embrace the genre, and I hope to
Mm-hmm.
see it continue.
Yeah, so much to unpack there, and thank you, man. This is exactly why I wanted to invite you. You know, this level of expertise, or even if you say as a layperson, this way of your point of view to look at it. Because yes, it's just a video game, but it can be so much more if you give it the chance. You said about camaraderie. You said about reaching out for help if you need it. Elbethium, that you said, I deeply admire him, and I'm in debt because he actually just helped me out one of his videos with Shadow of the Earth Tree. With these builds that they are new to me. We'll tackle first Elden Ring. The final boss. That's I know you haven't fought him, but and I won't go into it, but it's been a real trouble for a lot of people. But I think
Yep.
that, and with due respect, like it's a really hard boss. I've been there. I gave up myself. I mean, I didn't give up. I beat him, but because I asked for help. I couldn't do it on my own. But and I guess that's fine too. But what
Of
I
course.
eventually found out, thanks to people through Twitter, you should try all of these different strategies
Yep.
that work for
Yep.
different people. And that's something that I really, really started to love and see about Souls games as a whole. Every
Yep.
single experience is so deeply personal. It's so different.
Very,
There
very
was
much
there
so.
was right, like, and it's crazy because there's this one boss that I struggle for hours and hours, and then there could be this guy who's also a newbie like me, and be like, yeah, I bet him the first or third try, and then there's a veteran who says like, I can't beat him yet, and it's crazy for me to think that it's the same game, and the same game for all of us, and the same mechanics, but we all engage it in a different way. We all,
Yes, beautiful,
we all
beautifully said.
maybe
I
try,
agree. I
we
agree.
all
Yeah,
try
and
to not like dodge or use different weapon or use magic. It's mind blowing to me to see how every every story of every person is personal and very rewarding at the same time when they do get to beat that
yeah,
final boss.
I agree 100%. And the only thing I would add to that is there's the connective thread is that struggle triumph loop. Everyone who
Yeah,
plays the game, who understands it, I can see it in your face right now. Like that was one of the first things that I said when I joined gaming Twitter. I was like, From Software perfected
yeah,
the struggle triumph loop. Like they perfected it, right?
yeah.
Like that sense of gratification, that sense of satisfaction, of relief, when you finally overcome something is second to none in gaming, right? Let's not be like hyperbolic and say that it's the best feeling in
Hmm.
life, but in terms of gaming, I haven't
Yeah.
I haven't really found any other game that has made me dig deep. Whatever,
Hmm.
like self-imposed challenges notwithstanding, I'm still having, even if
Hmm.
I didn't have to, I'm sure I would still be challenged. And I think that's the
Yeah.
underlying
Yeah.
strength, I think, of all Souls games. And that's one thing
Hmm.
that, to kind of touch upon the discussion about difficulty, right? Like, I
Mm.
really hope
Right.
that they continue to commit to their vision, because
Yeah.
I think, you kind of run against the problem of not being accessible to everyone, but art isn't
Right.
supposed to be accessible to everyone, right? Like I think that a lot of
Right.
people, especially in the last few
Yeah.
years, like with Souls games and the popularity and all of the imitations that have come out, you
Yeah.
know, I feel like there's a lot. I think that there's the sense that, hey, like this is a game genre that is popular and I should be playing it. And maybe you'll
Hmm.
find that it's too difficult. That doesn't mean that the philosophy needs to change, right? It just might mean that the game isn't for you. It's not necessarily a
Right.
gatekeeping mentality. And so I
Yeah.
really try to, like, for me personally, when I have conversations on Twitter, I struggle to toe that line, right? Because
Hmm.
I'm of the mindset of I'm an NES gamer. I've been gaming since the '80s, where we really didn't have a choice, right? Like,
Yeah.
unfortunately, the
Contra.
rigid and sometimes unfair game design was something we just had to deal with, right? And so my mentality is
True.
different than someone who started gaming in 2000, for instance. And so I respect that and I understand that. It's definitely
Yeah.
nuanced, but for me, I'm an advocate of first and foremost developers committing to their vision, and then
Of course.
secondly, I'm an advocate of the player engaging with the game as intended, right? Like,
Truly.
so
Truly.
that and so my whole thing, and I've said on Twitter, like, if you don't engage with the game mechanics, then I'm just not going to take your opinion seriously, right? There's a difference with saying that I don't like having to menu and select items in the middle of a fight, versus saying I just don't like the way that it looks, right? One of them is based
Hmm.
on
Hmm.
experience, and the other one is just vapor, in my opinion. So,
Hmm.
I think that the discussion of difficulty, especially as it relates to Souls games, is a healthy one because you certainly want a lot of people to enjoy it, but you also want
Yeah.
people to understand that if you were like just like any artist, you wouldn't go to them and ask them or tell them how to paint their canvas, right? Either you like
Of
it or you
course.
don't,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, I think
Yeah.
that's the thing that people just need. That's the part that people have a hard time accepting, at least based on the social media conversation, is that maybe this just
Hmm.
isn't for me. And that's different than saying that these games aren't good or that they're just much too difficult.
And it's a very interesting point, man, because I will be completely honest with you. When I first clicked with Bloodborne, the first two fights, with that beast, and then with
Father
um
Gasquion, Papa G.
Father Gasquion, thank you.
Yes,
Whew,
sir. I
yeah,
know. We know him well.
that was a fight. The what they say, what distinguishes the kids from the man, right? Like that's when
Yes,
you
that
really
yes,
have to
boys
like
to men,
fully
absolutely.
fully, yeah, voice to man, yeah, like you really have to focus and use all your abilities. Your hand-eye coordination has to be at the top of its game, and it's
Exactly.
great to have that. But then I found out that as you progress through the game, you can level up. You can artificially like make it easier for yourself. You can over level. I know there's a cap, but still, it makes it so much easier
Yes.
to fight some bosses that could be otherwise extremely difficult unless you're doing a challenge. In Elden Ring, I found to do the same, where you can upgrade your weapon, and
Yes.
that damage output with an upgraded weapon makes it so much easier fighting a boss in beating a boss in just 5 hits or 6 hits when it could otherwise take you what 15, 20, and that's when they could kill you. So it's all about finding the way to make it easier or harder for yourself. I really
Exactly.
appreciate all of the videos, all of the training that you do for all of your
Thank
challenges.
you.
This woman on Twitter, she does these rune level 1 challenges as well, and I find it fascinating to see, because they all document their progress, and you can see that it's a really tough time, and they said it, they say it all the time. They say, well, you know what, I've been at it for so many hours, for so many days, but I will get it just right. And
Exactly.
that's just one way to go about it, because there are some bosses, I think, in Bloodborne, and in Elden Ring as well, that you will still have a hard time with it, because I think the game, that's why the level caps are in place. It kind of does know that it will be a little trivial if if they put these accessibility features in. They
Sure.
know that if they put an easy mode, defeating the bosses will not be as rewarding, and people will not engage and will not have that feeling of success.
Exactly right.
You know,
It's the from soft sauce, right? It's the je ne sais quoi, right? It's the like, why am I doing this? But like, I can't stop doing this. And to
nice.
your point, like you said, it's all about tuning. Like something else I like to say, it's about tuning your experience. And I think you
Mm-hmm.
touched upon that. Like that's essentially,
Yeah.
I think, the best way to sort of sum up everything that you said. Tune your experience. There are going to be people that want to challenge themselves and do level one
Yeah.
runs, and there are other people that want to enjoy the game and feel overly powerful. Like there's room for both. And to your point about Bloodborne.
Mm.
Okay, Papa G is a skill check, right? That's what they say, right? I didn't know.
Yeah.
So it's so funny. Like maybe we can have another conversation another day. But like there's so much terminology that like I don't that I just had to get up to speed with very quickly, right? And when I came to gaming
Right.
Twitter, I'm like, I could infer something, okay, skill check, but I didn't know what it meant, right?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I knew I experienced it actually in 2015, ironically with the game that you started with, Bloodborne, because that's the game that I started with as well, right? I purchased that
Whoa.
game on launch day with sight unseen, right? Just walked into GameStop, was picking up some games, and I saw this game called Bloodborne, and like one of the
Uh-huh.
clerks was like, "Yeah, man!" Like, of course, he was like a Souls veteran at that point. He was like played Dark Souls, and I didn't know any of those
Yeah.
games because I was very much, and you can probably still tell I'm very much like an action combat oriented guy, right? So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I think I picked up Near Automata at the same time, right? And so like you could kind of
Ooh.
see the contrast. I guess they're both kind of RPGs, they're both basic action, but I took
Right.
to Near Automata at the
Mm-hmm.
time
Mm-hmm.
because I just wasn't ready for like the idea of menuing. And like when I started playing Bloodborne, I'm like,
Yeah.
to your point, you were talking about upgrading weapons. I'm like, what is a blood gem? What am I supposed to do with this? What are these percentages? Like, what do you mean I need to
Yeah.
like craft items? I'm like, you know what? If I can't just point and shoot at something, or if I can just pick up a sword and cut something, I don't want to do it, right? So I played Bloodborne
Yeah.
until I got to Papa G, and then I shelved it for 6 years. Yeah, so
Whoa.
talk about a skill check,
Whoa.
right? That was a skill check for me to even enter into the Souls genre. But in
Right.
2021, similar to you, I picked it up again, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, let me try this again. People talk about it; they say that it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Let me try. Why shouldn't I try this, right? And I did,
Right.
and as you can see, like obviously I've taken to it, and it's awesome. To your point, to feel like
Mm-hmm.
something's insurmountable, and then realize that you can beat it. Now there's no game that I
Yeah.
play that I feel like I can't dominate, and I think that
Yeah.
Souls games are heavily contributed to that feeling.
There is one key moment in all of those games, even in Neo, which I hated because I would be constantly one-shotted. But I think that's there's one key moment where it clicks with your mind and you say, I can beat him. You know, I got
Yes.
this close to beating him, or I
Yes.
got to the second phase, or I know he's gonna do this attack that he telegraphs really quickly, but you get it. That's the moment I think that it made me addicted to them. And like, you know, I've played all of these games now: Bloodborne, Sekiro, now Elden Ring, and Shadow of the Earth Tree, all of them this year. But I think if I go back to that moment with Father Gascoigne, that I didn't struggle that much in general. Well, like 1 or 2 hours, which is, you know, for a casual gamer, I guess a little too much. But I knew that I could get it. I knew that
Yeah.
I just had to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more careful with my dodges, and so I
He
did beat it
scared me,
in the end.
man. He scared me.
Yeah,
He
that
legitimately
second phase was insane. Like, it's
he
insanely
scared me.
aggressive,
Yep.
and I think that's also a part of what Bloodborne made me addicted to these games, because it's kind of like a nightmare scenario. You know, the way you start, it's not night yet, and then it's a whole, it keeps getting worse, and you know,
Yes.
you're the hunter, you're the guy who has to succeed at the end of the day at any
Yes.
cost,
Yep.
and getting that warrior's courage. I think something that also that you have to be in the mood for, man. Because there have been, I have had to take breaks from Souls games. You know, I didn't play one after the other, because sometimes you need to take your break. You know, you're not always 100% when you're playing these games. You know, you have, you know,
Yes.
good days and bad days, and you know, sometimes you're
Yes.
like, you know, if he beats you, you get sad or something. You have to be in that mindset of grinding, of, you know, you're not gonna beat me,
Absolutely. Yeah.
which
It's
is, I think, an important part of it.
yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you 100%. I think it must speak to something inside of us, right? This idea of, like, you know,
Yeah.
the inherent desire to overcome challenges. I think that they've captured it
Hmm.
perfectly. And you know, it's really nice. It's
Hmm.
really cool to hear the way that different people experience, you know, these a Souls
Yeah.
game. Like for me, when I beat Father Gasquion, I knew I was going to beat the game, right?
Hmm.
Because that was what
Hmm.
stopped me the first time. Yeah, you know
Nice.
what I mean. And so like, and then you
Yeah.
know, it was awesome as well. Was I joined the Bloodborne subreddit, and people there were so
Mm.
helpful, and I found so many like-minded people. I
Yeah.
was like, wow, these people are like really smart. They're nice. They're like, they think outside the box.
Yeah.
Like they have these, like, some of them have these really weird strategies, and so like that's when I started to realize like what the appeal
Yeah.
of Souls games, to your point, is that it means something different to everyone, right? And you know, people have, it's
True.
very much, to your point, a very visceral and personal journey. And but you know, like you said, it's sometimes they're a little much, and so you have to like, um, you have to step away. And I did that with Dragon's Dogma
Yeah.
2, as you know. Like I just kind of like got lost in that world, very much
Hmm.
a power fantasy, and so like I never really felt challenged, and so I try to
Hmm.
challenge myself by, you know, trying to engage with the
Right.
game's mechanics as efficiently as possible, as I possibly could, in my mind anyway. But
Yeah.
there was that itch, you know, and I even mentioned on the timeline. I was like, you know, I've been playing. I played Stellar Blade,
Hmm.
you know, I played Dragon's Dogma, and these games are really good, but something's missing, you know, like
Hmm.
that the challenge. I don't feel
I get
challenged, and
you.
I really feel like since I played Souls games, like
Yeah.
there's literally nothing. There's no game that challenges me or makes me feel the same way. I think maybe Lies of P came very close,
Yeah.
but in general, yeah, I think
Hmm.
that the like Souls games in general, man, they just really hit a sweet spot for a lot of people, you know, and it's
Right.
really good to see. It's really good to see. It's sad when the conversation sort of um, veers away from what really makes these games as special
Yeah.
as they are.
Yeah, that is true. I remember when I first started when I first beat Bloodborne, and I wanted to talk about the community as well, because that's a really a key point, I think, to this whole conversation regarding around the Souls games. I think community is very important. Um, but yeah, I wanted to say that
Sure.
people told me when I first beat Bloodborne, you know, you're never gonna see video games the same way. The thrill of the fight is gonna call back to you, and I was a little exhausted because if you remember,
Yep.
I was in a whirlwind. My mind was just focused on Bloodborne. I remember I started it on a weekend, and I couldn't stop playing. And I beat it in like four
Yeah.
days, like 20 hours or so. And I remember going to bed and waking up the next day and having breakfast and just thinking about it,
Thinking about it.
hanging out with family or friends and just thinking about it because it's, am I gonna be able to beat it, like, or is the game gonna get the best of me, which is something that, as you said, not everybody's gonna take that challenge or agree with it, but once you see that it is possible, it's true what people said. It is really hard to go back. I mean, obviously, I still love story-based games, narrative stories, chill adventures, but um, I finished Bloodborne, then I took a break for like a month, and then one day I was just
Sure.
craving that thrill of the fight once again, which is, which game can do that to you? I mean, some games I remember fondly the music or the gameplay even, but the thrill of the
Sure.
fight is something that is just, I mean, almost exclusive to Souls games for me.
I agree. And when you kill a remembrance boss and it says that this
Hmm.
remembrance has been hewn into the Erd tree or now into the Skidoo tree, right? That's exact.
Yeah,
I can honestly say that that's essentially how it feels, right? The feeling that you describe, essentially, it never leaves you. It kind of becomes
remembrance.
a part of you, right? It never goes away. And
Yeah.
I'm very thankful that I took to it, that I'm not cynical. Um, in the
Yeah.
way that a lot of people are, who might disagree
Hmm.
with the difficulty of these games or not understand why.
Yeah.
There's a reason for it. I mean, it's really a metaphor. It's a metaphor for life if you really think about it.
Hmm.
If you really think about it,
Yeah.
it's a metaphor for life. And what I find I hear a lot of are a lot of people saying that, man, like I was in a really bad place, and I
Right.
picked up Dark Souls 1, and then I picked up Dark Souls 2, and like those challenges that I overcame in the game made me emboldened me to think that I could do the same in life. Like I've seen people say that, right? And so that's
Hmm.
that's special. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you might not understand that, as somebody who might not enjoy those kind of games, but that's incredibly special, and valuable.
Yeah.
Um,
I was thinking, I was debating if I should tell this story because it's something deeply personal to me. But now that you mention it, I guess it's
sure,
part of the conversation.
sure.
I did this year, man, 2024. A friend invited me to his wedding in Vienna, Austria. I'm in Mexico, right? So it's an expensive trip,
Yep,
and in January this year I started looking for jobs, and looking for job opportunities and sending my CVs and getting rejected or not being called and always waiting for that moment of what, you're hired or getting a new opportunity. Right now, thankfully, I did get a good job and I'm in a somewhat better place, but when I crave that feeling of in real life success, that's why I guess a part of me went to Souls games because they do kind of give you that struggle. They're not gonna give it to you easily. You're gonna have to work for it.
yes, sir.
You're gonna have to engage with it, and I think that's one of the main reasons that I went to Souls games because the real life job market was frustrating me, and I wanted a win, so to speak, and eventually Bloodborne and these Souls games, all of them, kind of gave them to me in the end. Now, obviously, I just do it because of fun and entertaining myself. But in the beginning, that's why I approached these games, and it's kind of interesting and it talks about a little bit about myself and a little bit about what the games are about. And obviously, as you said, all these people with depression and personal, like,
Yep,
these intense issues as well, that is
yep.
quite well documented that they have helped them overcome these intense problems. I think that that's also a great testament to what the games can truly do for us.
Yeah, I agree. And just gaming in general, right? Like it's therapeutic,
Yeah,
or it could be catharsis depending on what you need in that moment in your life. Um, and yeah, I mean,
yeah,
thank you for sharing that story first and foremost. I'm glad to hear
yeah.
that you're back on your feet, and I love that you wanted to channel that energy positively, right? And it's really, I think
Mhm.
it's manifested itself. Like, you might not realize it, man, but I feel like you've aged in dog years, when it comes to like your gaming prowess.
Yeah.
It's just what Souls games do for you. And
Yeah.
so, like you said, like the fact that people can find deeper meaning, or some
Mhm.
intrinsic value in these games, like, means a lot. And I think that I think some developers really understand that, and they take that as a deep, personal responsibility. I would say that at this point I would consider, Miyazaki one of those guys, right? One of those.
True.
He's a purist almost, but not in the sense purist, but not puritanical, if that makes any sense. He's not like this. Like, he wants
Yeah.
to hold on to his vision, but he wants everyone to enjoy. He wants as many people to enjoy it as possible if
Hmm.
you're willing to change your mentality, but only if you're willing to do
Yeah.
that, right? And I think and that could be applied to any problem that you're currently dealing with in life. So, yeah,
Yes.
I agree.
Yes. I absolutely been loving this conversation, man. But I've been trying to keep them short because
Yes,
sometimes they
I
last like
couldn't do this,
15
by the way.
minutes.
I'm just like, I get it. I'm sorry. I'm verbose, so let's stay on
No,
topic.
you're amazing. No, 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 man. It's been a really great conversation, and it goes to
Thank you.
show how great these series of games are, when you truly take the time to explore what they are and what they can give and do for you.
Yeah.
To wrap up, I just wanted to say about the community, man. It's a part of me also felt a little committed because I remember asking before starting Bloodborne. I remember asking the community, and I've always had a small account, but I was so surprised when I remember I asked, I just said, give me your best Bloodborne tips for a first time player.
Yep.
And I had like 500 comments. I think my most commented on tweet of all
Amazing.
time, and I did read it all of them, and everybody was really helpful. Obviously there was a few people that said like, oh, just don't play it, or people
Yeah, of
being silly,
course.
but
Those.
most of
Yeah,
them,
we don't talk about those guys. They shall remain nameless. Yeah.
yeah,
The
but
Voldemorts of the community.
most of them were so kind and so helpful that I think they did help me get through the finish line without being spoilery, because eventually they did say some terms that I had no idea what they meant. But as I progressed through the game, I realized, oh, so that's what this guy meant, or let me
Yes. Yes.
that comment
Yes.
again, or explore Canehurst Castle, or go this way. Don't go straight into the boss. These little details, and going back to what we said about everybody having a different experience, because everybody had a very different advice, but it all really helped me get through that finish line in the end. And
Awesome.
it's been quite a journey.
What a beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a beautiful story, man. The community is awesome. Yeah. The community is awesome. Period. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Any last words? Anything that you want to say? Now that we're wrapping up.
Hopefully these aren't last words, man. Hopefully I'll be alive
Oh yeah,
tomorrow and I'll be able to speak again.
yeah,
but
definitely, man. We gotta do this
I
again,
knew
of
I knew
course.
exactly what you meant, brother. I guess what I'll say to the community is, peace and love. That's all I have to say to the community. In terms of, me and where you
Yeah.
can find me, if you're curious, if this conversation made you
Hmm.
curious, I
Yeah.
am, Broken Lobo on Twitter, Broken underscore
Hmm.
Lobo on YouTube, um, and Broken Lobo Gaming on Twitch. So should be pretty easy to find me, if you want to do that. If I
Hmm.
could describe myself in one word, I would say, contemplative. You'll
Contemplative.
find
It's good.
a bunch of you'll find a lot of different videos, where I'm exploring game mechanics or asking questions about them, or
Hmm.
just trying to challenge myself, in my favorite kinds of games. So I look forward
Hmm.
to potentially having you guys join. If not, hopefully you enjoyed this conversation. I'd also like to give a shout out to Andres. He
Thank you,
is,
man.
an amazing guy. Somebody that he and I connected. It was very easy for us to get along from the very beginning. I've seen this guy grow. from a relatively small account to one that's now burgeoning
Thank you,
and
man.
continuing to skyrocket. I think that you're well on your way. You're passionate and you're real about gaming, so I can trust any
Thank you.
words that you write down about it. I would definitely recommend people check out GamesCreed. He has a bunch of reviews on there as well,
Yeah.
which you guys may or may not know. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say, I think.
All right. Yeah, man. I absolutely love your content. I love your deep dives on Dragon's Dogma 2, on Forspoken, and obviously now the Souls games as well.
Yes, sir.
Thanks a lot for hanging out, brother. And of course, we will keep on talking and we will keep on having these conversations in this and in other formats.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate it,
So
man.
thanks a lot. And thank you guys for listening.
Have a great night.
All right.
Bye.
You too, brother.